Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome, everybody, to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooper-Ryder. I know you're very excited. You said, oh, my goodness, is that Andrew's voice gracing my ears? It is. You're lucky. I have to live with this voice all day, though. You just get it for an hour. Anyways, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. I've got a pretty awesome show planned for you. I'm not... I guess planned. I mean, it should be awesome. I can't tell the future. Let's see here. We got JCPS, of course, in the news with their $188 million deficit. Yearwood has decided to change his audit process from he was going to do a quick audit. He'd already picked out a company to do it. Now he's switching to an RFP. Some questions being asked about what's going on there. We'll dig into that. I make a post on social media about the cost English learners is to our school district, really breaking down the numbers and talking about how it's affecting, of course, the school system. Some revelations made in the comments section of that I'll talk about, but a lot of the lefties got really upset at me, calling me super big, giant, racist, unsurprisingly, but we'll take a look at their claims, take a look at the post, and see what you think if I'm a super big, darn right, mean old racist. Hopefully not. It'd be news to me. Anyways, Andy Barr sends over a cease and desist letter regarding a campaign ad that's been ran against him regarding funding for hospitals that do transgender surgeries. And assuming we have time, we'll dig into, of course, Thomas Massie and some of the conversations around it. Thomas Massie and Rand Paul recently completed their around the district visits, doing a marathon of events over a few days. We will dig into all that and more today on the Kentucky's Voice. But if you want to reach out to the show today, if you hear what we're talking about and you're like, I really have some opinions I want to give you, well, you can go ahead and shoot us a text. You can text us at 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. Shoot us a text. Give us your opinion. Also, if you want to help support the show here, you can text the word GIVE to that, 502-571-0970. And once again, Andrew Cooper-Ryder, your host for the day. If you like what I'm saying, you want to follow me, you can check me out on social media at X at KY Cooper-Ryder, Facebook, just search Andrew Cooper-Ryder, I guess. I don't know what my handle does. I don't think Facebook does that, where it's just like a username you at like it is X that you search. I guess you just got to search my name, Andrew Cooper-Ryder. You can also head over to theandrewshow.com to check out where you can listen to my own show that I do once a week as well. It's also broadcast here on 970 a.m. Sundays at 6 p.m. and on WBNA Wednesdays at 11. So you can check it out here. You don't even got to go through the effort of searching it out elsewhere. You can check it out right here. That's pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. Also, too, a story I didn't mention that we'll probably dig into, Powell County Schools. If those avid listeners of the show know that they're raising taxes over 15% on property taxes, and some citizens are fighting back against that. They're pretty upset about that. And a part of that process, they started filing open records reports to get some spending information, and they started putting some of that out. They haven't fully gone through that. And Powell County, they're pretty upset about it now. They've got issues with it. They've decided to go ahead and make a post calling out a specific citizen for talking about this on a post that they turned the comments off of, because nothing says transparent and you can trust us like turning off the comments. So we got a packed show for you here on Kentucky's Voice. We're excited to have you with us. We'll be back in just a few short seconds here. But once again, if you want to reach out to the show today, make sure you jot this down. Number 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. Reach out to the show. Let me know how you're feeling today. But we'll be back in a few short seconds. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooper Ryder. We're excited to have you. We'll see you here shortly.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here with Andrew Cooper Ryder on Kentucky's Voice. Very excited to have you joining us today. So I stirred up some controversy. I got some pretty crazy comments because, well, I apparently touched the untouchable. I didn't realize that this was such a hot topic, but I guess it is. A lot of issues, a lot of people taking issue with me here. One of the comments to this post, and I'll go into the post here in a second, was, wow, you're super racist. You're awful. You are a bigot. Whatever it may be. And let me tell you the topic here. So I was talking about English learning students. So these are students who English is a second language to them. So obviously, that's what they're supposed to be. We'll talk about that in a second, because there's some indication based upon the comments on this post that some districts like JCPS and like Fayette County schools are actually inflating their English learner numbers in order to increase funding, because when you have a English learning student, you actually get more money from the state in the SEEK formula. You get a little additive. You get more money from the federal government, because obviously, if you're going to deal with these kids and teach them things, they have to be able to understand what's going on in the classroom. And so they provide that extra funding for support and help. Should they do that? Should they not? That's your choice to make there. But anyways, but the schools do get like an extra $2,000 to $4,000 a student in funding if they're labeled as an English learning student. And so that did come about on this post. I'm going to read to you what the post was. So I said, if people truly care about public education, they would demand an immediate halt to all non-English speaking immigration. Now, right off the bat, if you're somebody who's not in the know, not realize where I'm going with this, you might be taken aback. Be like, wow, that sounds super racist. You don't want non-English speaking people here. Well, first off, I think it's kind of racist of you to assume that only white people speak English, and also that all white people speak English. Because, of course, there's French speakers, people from Spain, people from Italy, people from, I guess, Greece, speak Greek. People from white countries that also don't speak English. They are also a problem. It's not about whether you're white or not. It's about, do you speak English? That's where we're having issues. And quite frankly, too, when it comes to our country's culture as well, one of the things that keeps a country together, keeps it cohesive, is the ability to communicate with one another openly. And if you can't communicate with each other, you start to tear apart that fabric. But this wasn't just about that side of things, the culture of America being affected by immigration from people who do not assimilate. Because, of course, America's a melting pot. That's our strength. And people say that. Well, if they're not learning how to communicate with all of us, if they're not integrating into the culture, they're not melting in the pot. They're just creating some nasty froth or something. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But continuing on in the post, I said, English learner EL students are a significant reason our school systems are struggling, both financially and academically. How severe is the issue? I've been watching school board budget meetings across Kentucky, and one reoccurring issue is the rapidly increasing spending on English learning students. Now, for those of you at home, if you've seen any of the JCPS meetings about their budgets and concerns, this is actually something they've referenced too, the fact that they're spending millions of dollars more than they used to be on English learning students, and this is affecting their budget. This is affecting their ability to operate and function as a district. They mention it in their losses and why they have a $188 million deficit. And so this isn't like school boards won't disagree. Superintendents wouldn't disagree with that statement. English learners are 100% affecting their budgets, costing them millions more than they planned on when they were setting up their 5-year plans and 10-year plans and district plans all those years ago. But anyways, school districts have also wasted money on excessive central office staffing and unnecessary departments, frivolous spending. They struggle to acknowledge these inefficiencies, but will readily admit that their EL programs are growing, English learning programs. The Kentucky Department of Education recently presented data on English learners, and the numbers are shocking. Since 2017, English learner enrollment has increased by 89%. 89% increase, while overall student enrollment since 2017 across the state has grown by less than 1%. It also leaves you questions when it comes to things like school spending. If student body is growing by less than 1% across the state, and we see this in Fayette County Public Schools, I've seen the numbers there. You're not seeing large growth. In fact, something that came up during a committee hearing where they were asking the superintendent of Fayette County Public Schools about the fact that since over the last 5-10 years, the district has only added in 1,000 students, but has added in an additional 1,000 staff. They've added in as many students as they have staff. And of course, that isn't sustainable. And they brought that up. And funny enough, one of the comments from Liggins in that committee hearing was, well, we've had to spend a lot more on English learners. And of course you have, with an 89% increase compared to just 1% increase in student body. Currently, English learners make up 8.3% of the student body across the state. Obviously, in districts like perhaps JCPS, Fayette County Public Schools, some of those districts that have a heavier minority populations, you're probably going to see a higher rate of English learners. So if it's 8.3% across the state, it's not extreme to say 1 out of 10 to 1 out of 5. So 10 to 20% of the students in JCPS are considered English learners. They are labeling them, saying they literally cannot understand what they're being taught in the classroom. And we wonder why our schools are being held up. Go on to say there are currently 54,252 English learners enrolled in K through 12 public schools in Kentucky. So if one teacher covers 100 English learning students, I think that's probably a high guess, because part of the problem here too with English learners is there's all kinds of different languages. And so while you may have 40 kids that speak, Swahili in a school, and you'll have 100 kids speaking Spanish, and you'll have 30 kids speaking, Chinese, and 80 kids speaking French, right? And you have all those different language groups. You still have to have a teacher for each language. It's difficult to teach a person English, of course, if you don't also speak their language. And so you probably have a different, or at least a translator for each of those. You could have one teacher, but you need a translator now for each of them. So at that, one teacher per 100 students is a very conservative estimate on my part. But even at just one teacher for 100 English learner students, that means the state has overall employed, not the state, but the public schools within the state, 542 additional teachers. And if that teacher's total cost is just $50,000 per year per teacher, and that's a conservative estimate. I mean, according to salary.com, the average teacher salary in Kentucky is actually $55,000. Obviously, the districts like Fayette County Schools, Jefferson County Public Schools, they have a higher average teacher salary than the rural areas do. So if we're looking at places where the English learners actually are in higher volumes, you're actually going to see that average much higher, probably around 60 to 65,000. So 50,000, once again, a very conservative estimate. Also, that doesn't include benefits and retirement and all those other things per teacher. So, so just 50,000. It's probably twice as much, but we'll just say 50,000 at 542 teachers. That's another $27.1 million a year in teacher salaries alone. That doesn't even account for the cost of management, teaching materials, facilities, translators, plethora of other things that are provided to these English learning students. I mean, this is literally probably costing the Kentucky taxpayer across the state, I would say easily $100 million a year to teach kids English. And frankly, I take some issues with this. We'll dig into that here in a bit. The other thing you have to be aware of when it comes to the financial strain here is chronic absenteeism. So some school district funding is tied to how often kids show up to school. Chronic absenteeism really affects the budget because they have to staff for the kids. But if the kids don't show up, they don't get the same amount of funding. So it does affect things. But according to the Department of Education, federal, English learners are 20% more likely to experience chronic absenteeism. So on top of the tens of millions of dollars they cost in extra teachers, materials, and things, you also now have the fact they don't show up to school in the first place, affecting the bottom line of these schools. So what should we do? Is this right? We'll continue that conversation after this short break, and we'll also start digging into JCPS's budget issues, budget crisis, and they're going to attempt to raise your taxes, Louisville. We'll take a dig into that. I'm Andrew Cooperrider here, hosting Kentucky's Voice for the day. We'll be back in a few short minutes.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. If you're just tuning in, I was going over how English learners in our K through 12 educational system are really affecting the bottom line, costing public schools tens of millions of dollars a year. And I'd made a post about it, detailing the numbers, detailing exactly how expensive it is. And of course, the left was very upset at me. I mean, they went as far as to threaten to get me fired from 970 AM, because I'm super fireable from here, let me tell you. But they live in their own worlds. Even some people commenting on the post agreeing. They were saying things like, "Oh, I'm going to report this comment to the mayor of Lexington and make sure your retirement gets cut off," because they disagree with him on the immigration side of things. Absolutely ridiculous. But the point I was going to was like, look, we don't have the money. We can't afford it. These school districts are going broke. And of course, leftists always think, well, you just tax the rich more. You can just pull more money. You can just take more money from other people. Literally, we're tapped. Middle class, lower class, upper class. It's ridiculous. Some of these checks you're writing to the government on top of all the other taxes. I mean, at this point, the average American, if you add up your income tax that you pay, you add up all the various taxes on your sales tax, you buy insurance here in Kentucky, you pay tax, your property tax, you add up all these different taxes, you're paying easily 30-40% of your income. Easily. And they still want more. And I'm saying we don't have more to give you. There's nothing else left. You're trying to get water from a rock. And because there's nothing else left, and at the same time, we have issues here in America. We have infrastructure. We have a crime problem. We've got, obviously, our own systems to shore up. Our retirement systems, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Medicaid just needs adjusted. But Medicare, for retirees, something that we've supposedly paid into our entire lives, those are facing insolvency. And meanwhile, these leftists want to call you racist because you're saying, look, it's costing just Kentucky tens of millions of dollars a year. Imagine how much it's costing all taxpayers across the entire country for these English learners. We have got to stop it. Put a pause to any immigration from people who can't currently speak English. And they want to bring up, well, you don't know anything about naturalized citizens. They have to speak English. First off, it's a federal law that you have to teach any kids in the district, regardless of their immigration status of their family. So we're not just talking about naturalized citizens. We're talking about people with kids here that are on green cards, that are otherwise here in a non-deportable status, whether that's from some Biden administration thing or chain migration or whatever it may be, and also illegal immigrants. And we have to teach all those kids. And, if you're just saying, look, that's kids, we need to educate them if they're going to live in the country, that's okay. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I understand they can help out society that way. The problem is the cost because they don't speak English. And I'm not saying you kick out those kids out of school. I'm not saying you stop services for those kids. Can we just agree, though, to stop doing this? Legal or illegal? We can't afford it. Your kids need to speak English before the taxpayer in this country starts paying for their education. You show up here never having paid a dime into our system, while the rest of us are writing checks for thousands of dollars a year to our school districts for property tax. Getting thousands of dollars a year taken out of our paychecks through the quote-unquote income tax, the occupational tax. This isn't something they've paid into, and then they show up and they suck away at it while your own kids can't do reading or math, and the school districts are talking about how much they're losing out money and having to raise taxes again in order for you to keep paying for these people to show up here that don't speak English, to keep educating their kids, and simply saying, hey, look, can we just stop this? It's unsustainable. We're tapped. We don't have the money. And you're now a racist, horrible bigot for saying that. Well, that's not what America's about. I don't know. It's weird that you claim, historically speaking, America's been about bringing in people that don't speak English and then educating their kids, when personally, I don't think they had an English learner program in the early 1900s, late 1800s, did they? Did they have an English learning program when the Statue of Liberty was built? Did they add a line that says, and if they don't speak English, that's okay? No, that's clearly not what our country was built on. Clearly. Yet they want to change history. And yet I'm the racist for saying, look, we ain't got it. We ain't got the money. Clearly JCPS doesn't have the money. They're out here talking about different tax increases. They're talking about adding on a tax increase to your utilities. Taxing you for using power and water and trash. You know, your necessities to live. They're going to tax you on that. They already tax you on your shelter. Now they're taxing you on your water. Next, they're going to find a way to tax you on your food. They're going to figure it out. If they can figure out how to tax that donut you're buying right now, they're going to do it. If they can tax your Sam's Club food court order, that's what I eat every day after this show, because we're by Sam's Club. Anyways, if they're going to figure out a way to tax it, they are. They're going to do it. They already got shelter and water. If they can figure out a way to tax you how to breathe, they would. And they would tax it to pay for teaching these kids who don't even speak English and to educate these kids. Well, your own kids who do speak English are failing in math, science, reading. Keep in mind, right now in JCPS and Fayette County Public Schools, right now, science proficiency in many of those districts are below 10%. And some of you may remember this, a stat I brought up. It's a very shocking stat. That's why I reference it. According to the Federal Department of Education, more than 1 in 10 kids will experience an inappropriate sexual contact conversation, some sort of sexual inappropriateness from a teacher that's in K through 12 public education. Your kids are more likely to be, sexually accosted by a teacher than they are to graduate proficient in science. In Jefferson County Public Schools and Fayette County Public Schools, that's the situation they're in. And meanwhile, instead of trying to fix that, instead of maybe spending some money on getting the pedophiles out of our K through 12 education system, because apparently we're ranked with them. Every day you're seeing it. Instead of spending money making sure, your kids learn science instead of getting their butt grabs by teachers, instead of doing that, they're spending it teaching some kid who showed up 5 seconds ago with his family English, who hasn't paid a dime into the system. And yet when you bring it up and point that out and say, this is unsustainable, you're the racist. You're the awful person. I was called a white nationalist, which I think definitionally is technically true. I am white, and I believe in preserving our nation. I'm not saying I believe in preserving the white race within our nation. That side of it, I don't particularly care. I just care about preserving our country, our American culture. I care about preserving the melting pot. The thing you chastise me over online for saying I don't support because I say things like, hey, English learners are draining our financial system. Once again, a melting pot means you join the pot. You conform. You melt into the culture. Maybe you add your own little spice, but generally you melt into the soup. You don't sit on top like a crouton nobody ordered. Anyways, coming up after this, JCPS, they're backing off on their audit. They're trying to raise taxes. Kentucky lawmakers say they're going to fight like heck, their exact words, to stop this from happening. We'll be covering those statements and those issues after this short break. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. We'll be back in a few short minutes.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. Been talking today about education for a little bit. You guys know I'm hot, I'm passionate about that issue. And in that realm, Jefferson County Public Schools is, it's a tire fire. I think we can all admit that, right? I mean, it's not going great. Horrible results, of course, spending over $2 billion. $2 billion. And yet not enough money. They have a $188 million deficit this year. They're going to have to sell off assets in order to make payroll, in order to pay contractors. And by this time, in 2 years, so next year they got to pay off. In 2 years, they will not have enough assets to pay off, to cover payroll, to cover contractors, and the district will be insolvent. So they're working fervently to solve this problem. And of course, one of the ways they're trying to solve it is by, raising taxes. And so a budget workforce has been put together to look at what taxes they can raise. Now, a lot of taxes, if they wanted to put them in, would require a referendum vote. And, they don't think that'll go too well for them. There's been a lot of changes, too, since the last referendum vote where they raised taxes. There's a referendum, then they end up being able to spend the money and keep it and just fight the referendum on that. And the way that things have changed, one is you can collect signatures electronically now. So it doesn't have to be door to door, pen and paper. You can collect them even online. You can collect them using digital sources as you're out places collecting up signatures. So there's a lot of options opened up. And they changed it, too, to where the amount of signatures you need to put it on a ballot is a lot lower. So it's what is it? I believe it's maximum 10,000 or 10% of however many people voted in the last presidential election, up to 10,000. So it's a lot less signatures is what's changed to. So they know they wouldn't do a referendum. So instead, they're looking at other things like adding on the utility tax that they're allowed to add on right now by state law and doesn't require a referendum because, of course, they need to raise the revenues. They're broke. They got nothing to cut, nothing they can save. I mean, they just literally cut $133 million from their budget, and they say it's not going to affect teacher salaries. So one may say, if you can find $133 million to cut, maybe you got some more. But Jason Nemes was recently on WDRB, and he made it pretty clear to Jefferson County Public Schools, we're going to fight you on raising these taxes. In fact, we'll even change the law if we have to. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
$1 hole has JCPS in a financial crisis, and a Republican state lawmaker calling the district's top decision makers incompetent. WDRB's Addie Shaney explains what their plan could mean for your taxes. Addie?
Gail, Representative Jason Nemes was clear. State Republicans will do everything in their power to stop JCPS from raising taxes, even if that means changing the law.
If they try to do that, there will be an absolute war against them.
State Republicans have not been shy about criticizing Kentucky's largest school district. House Majority Whip Jason Nemes says the district's near $200 million shortfall just gives another reason.
This is a problem that has nothing, not a zilch, not a thing to do with money. It has to do with their incompetence.
JCPS's $2.3 billion budget is nearly double Louisville Metro's.
About 5 years ago, they raised our taxes 9%. That's a massive tax increase. They got a big tranche of money from COVID, yet they still can't manage their dollars.
In 2019, the district's budget was $1.7 billion. JCPS now spends about $600 million more.
I know they need it for the schools, so that's that's on my conscience, but at the same time, if you dug yourself your hole, you need to get out of it.
Board members say they weren't aware the district's spending was so bad it would have to consider selling off assets. But that's now on the table to make payroll next year.
We are not going to be spending the same amount of money in the next budget year. We cannot. But we also have to explore our revenues.
The crisis has revived long-standing Republican calls to split the district. Nemes says it's not on the table this year, but remains a priority for the future.
Is very, very big. I'm not sure they can get the job done. They've not proven that they can.
And a major tax hike may be off the table.
We'll change the law to disallow it. They will not be substantially raising the taxes again.
I reached out to House Democrats for comment and haven't heard back. Addie Shaney, WDRB News.
So to repeat something said in there, JCPS is so Louisville Metro's budget, right? So that is fire, police, city hall, that is roads, that is what else is it? It's the water, sewer, utilities here. I believe it's trash. You go through the list. All the services. I mean, they're even building a soundstage for movies to be made here. So, I mean, a literal movie studio. Add that in. Add all that together, all those services together, and the school district, busing, they do busing. The school district spends over twice as much. Somehow, it is more than twice as expensive to educate the 80-ish thousand students or so that are in JCPS than it is to provide security for the entire city. Fire control, to make sure no fires burn in the entire city, to handle road work and paving in the entire city, to provide water and sewer in the entire city. It is somehow more than twice as expensive. Let that sink in. $600 million more in 8 years is what they're spending. $600 million more. And then they sit there and say, I didn't know it was so bad. I mean, sure. Were we approving the budgets? Okay. Were we approving the spending? Perhaps. But it's not like you can expect us, the school board members, who are elected to run the school district, to keep track of the checkbook. How were we supposed to know we were writing bad checks? How were we supposed to know we were spending too much? You expect us just to know our budget? What are we? Some sort of, board put together to make sure the school district runs effectively, efficiently, and still, financially exist? That's not in our job title. What do you mean? And the fact that, it shows too, because they have approved spending over the last several years that absolutely have affected this. They mentioned it in their meetings, approval of DEI programs and other things. They're redoing all the sports fields. Across all the schools, they're redoing all of them. They decided to do that. And they're like, well, I never thought to ask, do we have the money for this? I just assumed. And if we didn't, not a big deal. We're just going to go ahead and go over to the old taxpayer's pocket. We're just going to reach right in there and get a few more grand right out of it to make it work. Endless pot we have here. Well, it looks like that pot might be reaching the bottom of it. Looks like you might be running out of money soup there, JCPS, because your plan to raise taxes apparently, as Jason Nemes just said, they will change the law if they have to stop you. And I'm here for it because they can't just write a law that says JCPS can't do this. Instead, the law that they write has to apply to all school districts in the entire state. And I'm grateful for it. Have you ever imagine this, you ran a school district so badly that they decided to make a law across the entire state to stop everybody from being able to do something because you are a problem. It's like being in grade school and you're unable to, calm down. So they make everybody stand in the corner. It's the same thing. So, I'm just pointing out to you, maybe, you're spending all this money on fancy things. Maybe you should have spent more money on a lobbyist. I mean, they do spend money on lobbyists, tens of thousands of dollars a year on lobbyists. But whoever they're hiring is not very good. Literally, the legislature is going to change the law to make sure you can't raise taxes. Your lobbyist is failing. They're not paying off the right people. They're not lining the right pockets. What's funny there at the end, they said, we reached out to Democrats in the state legislature, and they had no comment. Because, of course, they don't. What are they going to say? Yeah, well, school districts run well. It's not a problem. More Louisvillians, whatever that is, it Louisvites, Louisvillians, Louisville, whatever. More Louisville citizens should, pay for this. No, of course not. They can't say that. They'd get voted out of office. So instead, they're just going to be quiet. You have a tire fire so bad that Democrats don't even want to get involved with it. That tells you it's messed up. Well, Yearwood, they've got an audit coming up, but Yearwood decided to put a pause on that. Smart move. So we'll go into that. We'll go into Andy Barr filing a cease and desist on a campaign ad he's not happy with. We'll have all that after this short break. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice, your host for the day, Andrew Cooper-Ryder. I am getting in some text if you want to text the show, 502-571-0970.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. Had a few text messages today I want to go over before we talk about the fact that Yearwood is changing up the audit and talk about that Andy Barr story. I wanted to mention it. Probably once again we'll get to talk about Massey. I always put it at the end of the show and I always run out of time. I just get fired up. You know, these kids not being educated well fires me up, makes me upset. I think part of it might be, and somebody mentions this too, they said, whoever decided, this was a text that came in, whoever decided that the public should pay for school anyways, seems like the people that have their students in school should pay for it. I paid for my kids' education. I mean, it is worth talking about. Now, to let you know who decided we should pay for it, the Kentucky State Constitution, when it was formed, says that we have to pay for common schools for kids of the Commonwealth. So the founders of our state constitution decided it, just to answer that question. But you're right. I mean, part of why I get so fired up about this public education is I do have a son, and I have to pay thousands of dollars a year for a private school for him because the public schools just simply aren't an option. I mean, when he was in 5th grade, this was in, he lives in Lexington. When he was in 5th grade, there were 2 transgender kids in his 5th grade class. 2. And I know at least one of them was very badly behaved because there were a lot of issues with the child, and the teachers refused to do anything about it because they're afraid to, because he's in this, protected class. So I put my kid in a private Christian school, but I'm salty about it. I'm coming out of, I already pay taxes to the schools, and I can't even send my kid to them because they suck. And I'm sure a lot of you listening feel the same way as this person who texted in and said, I paid for my kid's education myself. The system's clearly broken. I'll say that. Let's see here. Somebody else said, young children's brains are wired to acquire language. They should pick it up by immersion in the standard classroom, just by exposure. And why does the school have to provide for whatever need shows up at the door? The schools are to teach, not raise children. Focus has been lost. I'm 100% with you on focus being lost. I 100% with you. I have a real big problem, not that this has to do with English learners. I have a real big problem with this mental health treatments going on in our K through 12 education. This person's actually been emailing me. I got to get with him about perhaps some overbilling of Medicare going on within our Fayette County Public School, where they're doing some practices to maybe overbill Medicare for services in order to help, shore up their budget. And I'm not saying that's true, not saying that's going on. I have to dig into it still. Don't take that as gospel truth. However, why are they billing Medicare in the first place for anything? Medicare is for healthcare. What? Is the school's not a hospital? I know they have like a school nurse, but she's just like an employee that provides Band-Aids. What are you billing because when you're the school nurse, at least, I guess this is true. When the school nurse provides services to like a kid not on Medicare, it's not like I get a bill in the mail. It's not like you, if you have a public school kid, get a bill in the mail for that. It's not like you're like, get a bill for $5 for a dinosaur Band-Aid or something like that. That ice pack really cost us some money. You don't get that. So what are they billing Medicare for in the first place? The only healthcare treatment that should be going on at our K through 12 educational centers is Band-Aids for scraped knees, ice packs for bruised bodies. I don't know. Dodgeball hits to the face. You need an ice pack. But that's all that should be going on. Why are they able to do that? And it's not just Democrats that buy into that. I mean, we've got Republicans. I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm sorry, this texter got me off on a tangent. But, that's part of a live show. It happens. That's why you text in. Anyways, the Republican legislature, just like last session, passed a bill, maybe 2 sessions ago, passed a bill on creating a trauma response team to provide mental health care to kids going through mental health trauma within the K through 12 education. And a part of that is some sort of faith leader. They literally want they passed a law that would allow some random pastor that you don't even know what they believe. Are they coming from an Episcopalian church? And if you're an Episcopalian listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to attack your faith, but let's call it what it is. It's a little gay. Okay. The Episcopalian faith, it's a little gay. You guys have a lot of trans flags and rainbow flags on a lot of things. That's all I'm saying. All right. Don't attack me. I'm just saying it. Okay. But I don't want an Episcopalian preacher talking to my kid. Pass. I don't want your female deacon bishop person from an Episcopalian church talking to my kid as a faith leader. That's I'll pass on that. But yet, our Republican legislature, that's what they passed. And it leaves, a lot of questions. Leaves a lot of questions for me as well. And so, but yeah, no, good point. And they do acquire language just through immersion. But something to know, I mentioned this like shortly, but when I made that post, a lot of the comments were about how people had their kids in the English learning program just because they're bilingual at their house or something, but their kid speaks English, understands English fine. They shouldn't be in the bilingual program, and they can't get them like out of the program. And as I mentioned, they do get like $2,000 to $4,000 more in funding per English learning student. And so is there a fraud here going on part of the public schools where they're labeling kids as English learners that really aren't? They understand English just fine. They don't need to be in the classes. We don't need to be spending money on it. But because they get that extra kick, the extra $2,000 to $4,000, they're like, nah, we'll just label them as such. Leads to some questions. That's all I'm saying. Going though into, I did mention this Andy Barr story I want to mention. So maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. There's this Andy Barr ad out there, and I personally haven't seen it. I haven't seen the ad itself on TV or anything. I have seen the ad. Correction. I personally have seen the ad, but I had to search it out to watch it. I do get some campaign ads. I watch, obviously I watch some antenna TV, so I'll see some ads there, local news, those kinds of things like WBNA. But I also watch, if I'm not watching that, I'll watch a lot of Tubi. It's free, Tubi, free. And I'll get some campaign ads there. So but I haven't seen this ad there. So I don't know where they were playing it, but the ad essentially states that Andy Barr funded hospitals that were doing gender transition surgeries on minors. And Andy Barr took a lot of issue with this. He sent over the cease and desist that says, that's not true. You need to deal with it. But this is a perfect example. And the Barr campaign does this. The Morris campaign does it. I'm sure the Cameron campaign will do it. A lot of campaigns do this. This is common practice in politics where you can grab an issue in a situation and obfuscate it to such a way that you can make it say almost anything you want. So in this example here, what has happened is that Andy Barr voted yes on bills that gave money to hospitals. The same as many Republicans and Democrats alike have voted on these bills to give money to hospitals. And then it turns out that those hospitals were also doing gender transition surgeries. But you sent the taxpayers there. So it is technically true that Andy Barr gave money, voted to give money to hospitals that were also doing gender transition surgeries. It is also true that Andy Barr voted for a bill to ban the use of gender transition surgeries in hospitals and to ban the funding of it, and is obviously against it. I don't think he's for it. his public statements have never said he's for it. And I think he personally is probably not for it. I don't think this is one of those things that he's just taking that position as a political stance that's convenient at the time. I think he really does have an issue with it, as most sane people do. And I can say that because, even Democrats by polling take issue with, chopping body parts and off kids, chopping parts off, giving them drugs to children. They take issue with it. I'd go as far as to say the people who did it should be taken to jail. If not, after being convicted in a court of law for mutilating a child, possibly death penalty. Just throwing it out there, rack it around your brain. Think about it. Because if somebody, if we think that somebody mutilating a child deserves a death penalty, and if you think that's mutilating a child, just saying, A equals B. Anyways, so he took issue with it and sent the cease and desist. And this is just something to watch out for in campaigning in general, in politics in general. They do this all the time. They'll take a bill and they'll put some things into it. I'll give you an example that happened here at the state legislature. So we in Kentucky pass every 2 years one big budget bill that has general funding in it where it says, here's just a couple $100 million for Cabinet for Health and Family Services, spend on what they want. Here's this, here's that. And then also there are line items and things that they say they are specifically funding. And this could be example like one in this last budget was body armor for police. And so if you just think overall that budget's spending too much money, you disagree with how much it's spending overall, you want to lower spending, you would vote no on that budget. Because, of course, the Republicans in this state have unfortunately increased their spending year after year and are spending more than the Democrats were when they were in power in the legislature when adjusted for inflation. That's a problem. We need to fix it. As Republicans, we need to call that out. But regardless, so you say, I'm going to vote no. Well, then they can just attack you. And this happened in this last election cycle. Nobody lost that was attacked this way. But they'll attack you as saying, look, you don't want to fund body armor for police. You're a horrible person. So I just brought that up because I think in this campaign season, we got the Senate race going on. Depending on where you live, maybe there's some other hot, heated races going on. Watch for those things and don't fully trust everything you're seeing there with the campaign ads and with the mailers. Okay, well, I've been your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. I thank you all so much for joining me. Hopefully you enjoyed the show today. Make sure you're tuning back in every day. But until tomorrow, that's it for Kentucky's Voice.